Captain Juan Taiman stood at the viewing window of his ship, watching two alien fleets face each other in the darkness of space. Red lights from the Kepler ships blinked angrily at the blue lights of the Zephyr vessels. Both sides had been fighting for 20 years over 3 small planets that nobody else wanted. "Captain, we're getting calls from both fleets," said Lieutenant Park from the communication station. "The Kepler commander says we should leave immediately. The Zephyr admiral is telling us the same thing." Juan smiled. After 5 years of diplomatic missions across the galaxy, he knew this was normal. Nobody trusted humans at first. They thought Earth people were strange. Most alien species came from safe, quiet worlds with gentle weather and friendly animals. Earth was different. Earth was what the galaxy called a death world. On Earth, storms could level cities. The ground shook and split open. Wild animals hunted in packs with teeth like knives. The gravity was so strong that most aliens needed special suits just to walk around. Yet somehow, humans had learned to be peaceful. "Dr. Lee, are you ready?" Juan asked. Dr. Lee Sora looked up from her research tablets. She had spent 3 months studying both alien species, learning about their biology and culture. "Yes, Captain. I think I understand why they're really fighting." The ship moved slowly toward the 2 fleets. Juan had done this many times before. Other species always expected humans to arrive with big guns and threats. Instead, humans came with medical supplies, food, and offers to help. "This is Captain Juan of the Earth Diplomatic Corps," he said into the communication system. "We request permission to speak with both fleet commanders." The response came quickly from the Kepler side. Their voices sounded like birds singing, but angry birds. "Human ship, you do not belong here. This is our territory." The Zephyr response was different. Their underwater cities had taught them to speak in flowing, liquid sounds. "Earth vessel, these waters are dangerous. You should swim away to safer currents." Juan had heard similar warnings hundreds of times. The galaxy thought humans were soft. They saw that Earth people preferred talking to fighting, and they assumed this meant humans were weak. They forgot that humans came from a world where everything tried to kill them. "Both commanders, we come with supplies for your wounded and a proposal for peace," Juan continued. "We ask only for 1 hour of your time." Dr. Lee moved to stand beside him. She had discovered something important in her research. The 2 species weren't really fighting over the planets. They were fighting because they misunderstood each other. The Kepler people needed the planets for their eggs. Their young had to be buried in warm soil for 6 months to develop properly. The Zephyr people needed the planets for their breathing. They had to surface from their underwater cities every few days, and these planets had the right kind of air. Neither species knew what the other really needed. The Kepler thought the Zephyr wanted to steal their nesting grounds. The Zephyr thought the Kepler wanted to poison their breathing worlds. Both were wrong. "I'm detecting movement from both fleets," reported Lieutenant Park. "They're powering up weapons." This was the dangerous moment. Both alien fleets had enough firepower to destroy Juan's small diplomatic ship in seconds. But humans had learned something important about the galaxy. Most species were more afraid of humans than humans were of them. "Kepler, Commander. Zephyr. Admiral, we know about the eggs and the breathing," Dr. Lee said suddenly. The communication channels went silent. Juan watched the weapon readings on both fleets. Slowly, they powered down. The silence stretched for several minutes. Finally, the Kepler commander spoke. "How do you know about our eggs?" "How do you know about our breathing?" asked the Zephyr admiral. At the same time, Dr. Lee smiled. "Because we studied you both. We learned that you're not enemies. You're both trying to protect your children." What happened next was what always happened when humans got involved in galactic conflicts. The fighting stopped, not because humans threatened anyone, but because humans took time to understand. The 3 planets had enough warm soil for Kepler eggs and enough clean air for Zephyr breathing. There was no reason to fight. There never had been. 6 hours later, Juan sat in a meeting room with both alien commanders. Dr. Lee had prepared charts showing how the planets could be shared. The Kepler could use the southern continents for their nesting sites. The Zephyr could build breathing stations on the northern islands. "You humans are strange," said the Kepler commander. preening her feathers thoughtfully. You come from a world of death, yet you bring life. The Zephyr Admiral bubbled agreement from his water tank. Your species should be warriors. Your planet trained you for war, but you choose peace instead. Juan had heard comments like this many times. The galaxy couldn't understand why humans were so peaceful. Earth had created the perfect soldiers. High gravity made humans incredibly strong. Dangerous weather taught them to adapt quickly. Predators trained them to think fast and move faster. But Earth had also taught humans something else. It taught them that violence led to extinction. Humans had almost destroyed themselves several times before learning to cooperate. We choose peace because war nearly killed us all, Juan explained. Our world taught us to be strong. Our history taught us to be wise. The negotiations continued for 2 days. Both species signed agreements to share the 3 planets. They also agreed to work together on other projects. The Kepler would help the Zephyr explore dry worlds. The Zephyr would help the Kepler develop underwater cities. As Juan's ship prepared to leave the Kepler system, Dr. Lee was already studying her next assignment. Another war, another chance for humans to prove that Deathworlders could choose peace. Captain, said Lieutenant Park, I'm picking up some strange communications. What kind of communications? Encrypted signals between several council species. They're talking about us. Juan frowned. The Galactic Council was supposed to support human diplomatic missions. Can you decode them? Working on it, sir. But what I can understand, they don't sound happy about our success here. Dr. Lee looked up from her research. Captain, I've been reviewing the data from our last 10 missions. We've stopped wars between 16 different species pairs. We've negotiated trade agreements for 47 worlds. We've prevented 3 potential genocides. That's good work, Juan said. Yes, but I'm seeing a pattern in the aftermath reports. Several council species are filing complaints. They say we're interfering with natural selection. They claim we're making the galaxy too peaceful. Juan stared out at the stars. He had always known that not everyone appreciated human diplomacy. Some species believed that war was natural and necessary. They thought peace made everyone weak, but humans knew better. Peace wasn't weakness. Peace was the hardest thing in the universe to achieve and maintain. It required more strength than war, more courage than fighting, more intelligence than destroying. The ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying its crew toward Earth and their next mission. Behind them, 2 former enemy fleets were already working together to build the first joint colony in the Kepler system. In the depths of space, encrypted communications continued to flow between certain council worlds. Messages about the human problem and the need for a final solution. The galaxy's gentle giants were about to learn that some problems couldn't be solved with kindness alone. Commander Park Ji-ho stared at the reports on his desk. 3 human colonies had experienced accidents in the past month. A mining facility on New Ulsan had suffered a reactor failure. The orbital platform above New Daegu lost life support during a routine maintenance check. Most recently, the agricultural domes on New Busan had been destroyed by what officials called unexpected seismic activity. 6,000 humans were dead, and Park didn't believe in coincidences. Dr. Kim, what's your analysis of the New Busan incident? Park asked. Dr. Kim Min-soo looked uncomfortable. He was a weapons researcher who had been pulled into intelligence work against his wishes. The seismic data doesn't match any natural earthquake pattern. The damage was too precise, too focused on critical infrastructure. Park had suspected as much. Someone was targeting human colonies, but they were being very careful to make it look accidental. The attacks were spaced out over several months and spread across different star systems. Without his intelligence background, it might have taken years to notice the pattern. What about the reactor failure on New Ulsan? Park continued. The reactor was sabotaged, Dr. Kim said quietly. Someone introduced a virus into the control systems. The virus was designed to activate during routine maintenance, making it look like operator error. And the life support failure on New Daegu? Microexplosives placed in the air recycling system. Again, timed to activate during maintenance. Very sophisticated work. Park leaned back in his chair. In 50 years of human space expansion, nothing like this had ever happened. Humans were popular in the galaxy. They helped other species solve problems. They prevented wars. They provided medical aid during disasters. Who would want to hurt them? Have you identified any similarities in the attack methods? Park asked. Dr. Kim pulled up several data files. All three attacks used technology from different species. The computer virus was crystalline design. The micro-explosives were saurian military grade. The seismic charges matched Zephyr mining equipment. So either multiple species are working together, or someone wants us to think they are. There's something else, Commander. I've been analyzing human military equipment that was left behind after peacekeeping missions. Someone has been collecting it. This was new information. Park sat up straighter. What kind of equipment? Medical scanners, communication devices, even some of our non-lethal crowd control tools. Nothing that seemed important at the time. But taken together, someone could learn a lot about our technology. Park felt a chill. Human technology was far more advanced than most species realized. Humans kept their most powerful weapons and systems hidden to avoid making other species nervous. If someone was studying human equipment, they might discover just how much firepower humans actually possessed. Dr. Kim, I need you to run a simulation. Assume someone has analyzed all the equipment we've left behind over the past 50 years. What conclusions would they reach about our military capabilities? Dr. Kim worked at his computer for several minutes. They would conclude that humans are much less advanced than we actually are. Our peacekeeping equipment is deliberately simple. It's designed to be effective but not threatening. So they would underestimate us. Significantly, they might think we're technologically inferior to most council species. Park stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the construction of 3 new diplomatic ships. Humans continued to build for peace while someone in the galaxy was planning for war. His communication device buzzed. Commander Park, this is Captain Juan. I'm sending you some intercepted transmissions. You need to see this. The files appeared on Park's computer immediately. They were encrypted communications between several council species. Park's translation program worked on them slowly, but what it revealed made his blood run cold. The messages spoke of the human problem and Deathworlder contamination. They claimed that human diplomacy was making the galaxy weak. They argued that constant peace prevented natural selection and evolution. Most disturbing were the military assessments. The communications suggested that humans were defective Deathworlders who had lost their survival instincts. They believed humans could be easily defeated because they had become too civilized. Dr. Kim, look at this, Park said, sharing the translated messages. Dr. Kim read silently for several minutes. His face grew pale. Commander, they're planning something big. These aren't just isolated attacks anymore. What do you mean? They're talking about annexation. They want to take human colonies by force. They think we won't fight back because we never have before. Park felt something cold settle in his stomach. The galaxy saw human kindness as weakness. They thought 50 years of peace meant humans had forgotten how to fight. They were about to make a terrible mistake. Dr. Kim, I need you to compile a complete assessment of our actual military capabilities. Not the equipment we show to other species, but everything. Include the classified projects, the hidden fleets, the weapon systems we've never used. Commander, that information is beyond my security level. I'll get you the clearance. We may need to remind the galaxy why Earth is called a death world. 3 days later, Park sat in a secure briefing room with Admiral Cho Yoon-ji and President Kim Woo-jin. The assessment Dr. Kim had prepared was spread across the table like a revelation of hidden power. Gentlemen, what we're looking at is the difference between what we show the galaxy and what we actually possess. Admiral Cho began. For 50 years, we've deliberately hidden our true capabilities to maintain peace. The numbers were staggering. Human shipbuilding capacity was 20 times larger than any other species realized. Most human industrial systems were located in hidden star systems, far from regular trade routes. Human weapons technology was centuries ahead of what the galaxy had seen. Why did we hide all this? President Kim asked. Because we learned from our own history, Admiral Cho replied. Every time humans developed superior weapons, we used them to kill each other. We decided it was better to be underestimated than to start an arms race. But now they think we're defenseless, Park added. The intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive. They want to test human resolve by attacking a major colony world. President Kim studied the intercepted communications. The Shadow Alliance, as Park had started calling them, was led by the Saurian Empire. The reptilian species had always believed in military strength. They were joined by several other militaristic species who saw human peace as a threat to natural order. What are their likely targets? President Kim asked. New Sol is the most probable, Park answered. It's our largest colony world outside the Sol system, rich in resources, lightly defended by visible military assets. They probably think they can take it with minimal casualties. Admiral Cho laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. They don't know about the Fifth Fleet. The Fifth Fleet doesn't exist according to public records, Park noted. Exactly. Along with the 6th, 7th, and 8th Fleets, plus the Guardian stations, the stealth monitor ships, and the planetary defense grids that nobody knows about. President Kim was quiet for a long moment. Admiral, if they attack New Sol, how many of their ships would survive? That depends on our rules of engagement, sir. If we're trying to minimize casualties, maybe 30%. If we're trying to send a message, none. None. The room fell silent. For 50 years, humans had chosen peace over power. They had hidden their strength to avoid frightening their neighbors. Now their neighbors were planning to exploit that apparent weakness. There's something else, Park said quietly. The communications suggest this is just the beginning. If the attack on New Sol succeeds, they plan to systematically annex all human territory outside the Sol system. They want to turn us into a client species, Admiral Cho added. Force us to provide diplomatic services under their control. President Kim stood up slowly. Gentlemen, I authorized the policy of hidden strength 50 years ago. I believed then, as I believe now, that peace is stronger than war. But there's a difference between choosing peace and accepting slavery. He walked to the window, looking out at the earth that had forged humanity in fire and ice, in storm and earthquake, in the constant presence of death. Admiral, prepare contingency plans for full military response. Commander Park, continue monitoring their communications. If they want to see what Deathworlders are really capable of, we may have to show them. Outside, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. In a few hours, the light of Earth's star would begin its journey to New Sol, carrying the warmth that had nurtured human civilization. By the time that light arrived, the galaxy might finally understand what it meant when Deathworlders stopped playing nice. The medical station New Hope floated peacefully in the neutral zone between human and Zephyr space. Dr. Lee Sora had volunteered to serve there after the successful Kepler negotiations. The station treated refugees from across the galaxy, providing free medical care to anyone who needed it. Today, the station was busier than usual. A plague had swept through the crystalline worlds, and dozens of their people needed treatment that only human medical technology could provide. Dr. Lee worked alongside alien doctors, sharing knowledge and techniques that had saved thousands of lives over the years. Dr. Lee, we're getting an emergency signal, called Nurse Park Hae-Wan from the communications center. Multiple ships approaching fast. Dr. Lee looked up from her patient, a young crystalline whose silicon-based body was fighting off the plague virus. Can you identify them? The signatures are Saurian, but they're broadcasting on emergency frequencies. They claim to be pursuing terrorist ships. This was unusual. Saurian military ships rarely entered the neutral zone, and they had never worked with human medical facilities before. Dr. Lee felt something cold in her stomach. Put me through to their commander, she said. The voice that came through the communication system was harsh and grating, typical of Saurian speech. Human medical facility, you are harboring dangerous criminals. Prepare to be boarded and searched. Dr. Lee frowned. Commander, this is a neutral medical station operating under Galactic Council authority. We treat all patients regardless of species or political status. That's not harboring criminals, that's providing medical care. Your patients include enemies of the Saurian Empire. You will surrender them immediately or face the consequences. Dr. Lee looked around the medical bay. Her patients included crystalline plague victims, Zephyr breathing disorder cases, and a few injured traders from various species. None of them were military personnel or political figures. Commander, I need you to specify which patients you're referring to. We have no criminals here, only sick people seeking treatment. The response came not in words, but in weapons fire. The first blast hit the station's outer hull, causing emergency alarms to sound throughout the facility. Dr. Lee felt the deck shake beneath her feet as the station's shields absorbed the impact. All patients to emergency shelters go, Dr. Lee shouted. Medical staff, begin evacuation protocols. But there was nowhere to evacuate to. New Hope was a medical station, not a military facility. It had basic shields for asteroid protection, but nothing that could withstand a military assault. The second blast hit the power generators, plunging half the station into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a red glow that made the medical bay look like a scene from a nightmare. Dr. Lee, they're broadcasting to the galaxy, Nurse Park reported. They're claiming we fired first. They're saying this is a human terrorist base. Dr. Lee realized what was happening. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate attack designed to make humans look like aggressors. The Saurians were creating a false flag operation, attacking a medical station and then claiming self-defense. The third blast breached the hull in Section 7. Dr. Lee watched her instruments as the atmospheric pressure dropped and emergency bulkheads sealed automatically. 3 of her patients were in Section 7. She didn't know if they had made it to the emergency shelters in time. Send a distress call to Earth, Dr. Lee ordered. Tell them we're under attack by Saurian forces. Tell them this is not an accident. The communication system sparked and went dead. The Saurians were jamming all frequencies except their own propaganda broadcast. For 30 minutes, New Hope endured systematic destruction. The Saurians were careful not to destroy the station completely. They wanted survivors to tell the story they had created. They wanted witnesses to testify that humans had fired first, that the medical station had been a secret military base. When the attack finally stopped, 67 people were dead. Most were patients who had come seeking medical treatment. Some were human medical staff who had died trying to protect their patients. Dr. Lee stood in the ruins of her medical bay, looking at the bodies of people she had been trying to heal. Among them was the young crystalline patient, whose plague treatment had been almost complete. He had died not from disease, but from decompression when the hull was breached. The Saurian commander's voice crackled over the damaged communication system. Human survivors, you will testify that your facility fired first. You will confirm that you were harboring terrorist elements. Cooperation will be rewarded. Resistance will result in additional casualties. Dr. Lee felt something break inside her chest. It wasn't fear or sadness, though she felt both of those things. It was the sound of 50 years of human patience finally reaching its limit. 2 days later, she stood before the Galactic Council, her arm in a medical cast from the station attack. The council chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all eager to hear her testimony about the human terrorist incident. Dr. Lee Sora, said Council Prime Theclon, please describe the events at Medical Station New Hope. Dr. Lee looked around the chamber. She could see the Saurian delegation sitting confidently in their seats. They expected her to follow their script, to claim that humans had fired first. Instead, she told the truth. She described the medical station's peaceful mission. She listed the names and species of every patient who had died. She explained how the Saurians had jammed communications while broadcasting false propaganda. She presented medical records showing that the station had no weapons, no military personnel, and no political prisoners. The Saurian ambassador rose to object. The human is lying to protect her terrorist colleagues. Our evidence clearly shows Your evidence shows nothing, Dr. Lee interrupted. Because your evidence is fabricated. You murdered 67 innocent people to create a false story. You attacked a medical station treating plague victims. The chamber erupted in arguments and accusations. Some species supported the Saurian version of events. Others demanded investigations. The Council Prime called for order, but nobody was listening. In the middle of the chaos, a small figure stood up in the observers section. It was Na Hyun-woo, a 10-year-old boy from New Seoul Colony. He had been visiting relatives on New Hope when the attack occurred. "May I speak?" he asked in a voice that somehow carried over all the shouting. The chamber slowly fell silent. Children rarely addressed the Galactic Council, and never during formal proceedings. "I was there," Na Hyun-woo said. "I saw everything. My grandmother was getting treatment for lung cancer. She was getting better. The human doctors were helping her breathe again." His voice was calm and clear, but Dr. Lee could see tears running down his face. "The big ships came and said we were bad people. But we weren't bad people. We were just sick people. My grandmother couldn't even walk without help. How could she be a terrorist?" The boy looked directly at the Saurian delegation. "You killed my grandmother. You killed the doctors who were helping her. You did it while cameras were watching so you could lie about what happened." Na Hyun-woo's voice broke slightly, but he continued. "My teacher taught me that humans came from a dangerous world. She said Earth made us strong so we could protect people who weren't as strong. She said we chose to be helpers instead of fighters." The chamber was completely silent now. "But you don't want helpers. You want us to be afraid. You want us to stop helping people. You think if you hurt us enough, we'll become mean like you." The boy wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "My grandmother told me stories about old Earth, about the wars before humans went to space. She said humans learned that being strong means protecting people, not hurting them. She said that's why we became peacekeepers." Na Hyun-woo looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. "We tried to be your friends. We tried to help you solve your problems. We chose to be kind even though our world taught us to fight. But you thought our kindness meant we were weak." His voice grew stronger. "You were wrong. We're not weak. We're just tired of fixing problems that other people create. We're tired of healing people that other people hurt. We're tired of making peace while other people make war." The boy sat down, leaving the chamber in absolute silence. Dr. Lee looked around at the faces of the council representatives. Some looked ashamed. Others looked angry. A few looked frightened. She thought about Captain Huan and all the other human diplomats who had spent 50 years preventing wars. She thought about the medical stations and humanitarian missions that had saved millions of lives across the galaxy. And she thought about the encrypted communications that Commander Park had intercepted, the Shadow Alliance that planned to treat human kindness as weakness. "Council Prime," Dr. Lee said quietly, "I would like to make one final statement." Theclon nodded. "For 50 years, humanity has chosen peace over war, diplomacy over force, healing over harming. We made these choices because we learned from our own history that violence leads to extinction." She paused, looking directly at the Saurian delegation. "But we also learned that there are times when peace is not possible. There are times when kindness is mistaken for weakness. There are times when good people must fight to protect other good people from those who choose evil." Dr. Lee stood up, her medical cast making her movement awkward, but Fleet Admiral Korth of the Saurian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet New Seoul grow larger on the main screen. The human colony world looked peaceful and defenseless, exactly as his intelligence reports had predicted. "Admiral, we're detecting minimal orbital defenses," reported his tactical officer. 3 small patrol ships and a cargo monitoring station. No significant military presence." Korth smiled, showing his sharp reptilian teeth. "Exactly as expected. The humans have grown soft with 50 years of peace. They've forgotten that survival belongs to the strong." The Saurian invasion fleet consisted of 200 warships, more than enough to overwhelm any human colony. Korth had brought overwhelming force to ensure a quick victory and minimal Saurian casualties. He wanted New Seoul intact for resource extraction. Begin the attack, Korth ordered. Disable their communications first, then target their orbital facilities. Leave the surface installations undamaged. We'll need them later. The first wave of Saurian missiles streaked toward their targets. Korth watched with satisfaction as the human patrol ships moved to intercept. 3 small ships against 200 Saurian warships. It would be over in minutes. Then something impossible happened. The human patrol ships simply vanished. Tactical. Where did they go? Korth demanded. Unknown, sir. They were there, then they weren't. Our sensors show nothing. Korth frowned. Human technology was supposed to be inferior to Saurian military equipment. They shouldn't have stealth systems that could fool his sensors. Sir, the missiles have reached their targets, the tactical officer reported. Then his voice changed. Admiral, the missiles they're not exploding. On the main screen, Korth could see his missiles striking the human orbital station. But, instead of explosions, there were flashes of light and then nothing. The missiles simply disappeared. What kind of defensive system is that? Korth asked. I don't know, sir. The energy readings don't match any known technology. Before Korth could respond, his communication officer spoke up. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the surface of New Sol. Put it through. The voice that came over the speakers was calm and polite, with a slight accent that Korth recognized as Korean. Saurian Fleet, this is Colonel Yoon Da-hai of the New Sol Defense Force. You have entered human space without authorization and fired weapons at civilian targets. Please explain your intentions. Korth laughed. Human Colonel, you are in no position to make demands. Surrender immediately and your people will be treated fairly under Saurian occupation. There was a brief pause. Admiral, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You seem to believe that you have us at a disadvantage. I have 200 warships, Colonel. You have 3 patrol ships that are apparently hiding somewhere. Actually, Admiral, you have 200 warships that are currently being targeted by systems you cannot detect, cannot understand, and cannot counter. Would you like a demonstration? Korth was about to respond when his tactical officer spoke urgently. Sir, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. The readings are off the scale. From where? Everywhere, sir. It's like the entire system just came online. On the main screen, space around New Sol began to shimmer. Slowly, like curtains being drawn back, hundreds of human ships materialized out of nothing. They had been there all along, hidden by stealth, systems that made them completely invisible. But these weren't the small, peaceful ships that humans used for diplomatic missions. These were warships unlike anything in the galaxy, sleek, angular, and bristling with weapons that Korth couldn't identify. Admiral, his tactical officer whispered, I'm reading over 800 human vessels, and they're not showing up on gravitational sensors either. They don't seem to be made of normal matter. Korth stared at the display. In 50 years of human contact, nobody had seen ships like these. Where had they come from? How long had they been hidden? Sir, I'm also detecting artificial gravity sources throughout the system, massive ones. It's like they've built hidden space stations everywhere. The human colonel's voice came back over the communication system. Admiral Korth, let me explain your situation. You are currently inside the most heavily defended star system outside of Sol itself. Every ship in your fleet is being targeted by weapons that can crack moons. Every square meter of space around you is monitored by sensors that can track individual molecules. Korth tried to keep his voice steady. You're bluffing. Humans don't have that kind of technology. Don't we? Admiral, your intelligence reports were based on the equipment we use for peacekeeping missions. Did you really think we would send our most advanced technology to mediate trade disputes? The human ships began to move, not aggressively, but with perfect precision. They formed a sphere around the Saurian fleet, maintaining exact distances and positions. It was a display of coordination that would have been impossible for any known fleet command system. Let me show you what 50 years of hidden development looks like. The colonel continued. One of the human ships, no larger than a Saurian cruiser, fired a single beam of light at an asteroid near the edge of the system. The asteroid, roughly the size of a small moon, simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris. It was there, and then it was in T.Korth, bridge fell silent. That was a low-power demonstration shot, Admiral. Our main planetary defense grid uses weapons approximately 1,000 times more powerful. Korth felt something he hadn't experienced since his first combat mission decades ago. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear of an enemy he couldn't understand or counter. Admiral, his tactical officer reported quietly, I'm detecting similar fleets throughout Saurian space. They're not attacking, just observing. What do you mean? Sir, there are human ships in orbit around every major Saurian world. They're all cloaked, but now that we know what to look for, we can detect their gravitational signatures. Korth realized the full scope of what was happening. While the Saurian Empire had been planning their attack on New Sol, humans had been quietly positioning fleets throughout Saurian territory. They had been watching, waiting, preparing. How long have they been there? Korth asked. Based on the gravitational data, some of these ships have been in position for years, sir. Years. The humans had known about the Saurian plans for years and had been preparing accordingly. While Korth had been gathering intelligence on human peacekeeping equipment, humans had been studying every aspect of Saurian military capabilities. The Colonel's voice returned. Admiral, we know about your shadow alliance with the Crystalline Separatists, the Zephyr militant faction, and the Kepler territorial expansion movement. We know about the attacks on our medical stations and colonies. We know about your plans to annex human territory. Korth slumped in his command chair. What do you want? We want you to understand something very important, Admiral. For 50 years we have chosen to be peacekeepers and diplomats. We chose to hide our true capabilities because we believed the galaxy was better served by cooperation than intimidation. More human ships continued to materialize around the Saurian fleet. Korth stopped counting at 2,000. But you and your allies decided that our choice to be peaceful meant we were weak. You decided that our desire to help others made us easy targets. You were wrong. A new voice joined the communication channel. It was older, more authoritative. Admiral Korth, this is President Kim Woo-jin of Earth. I authorized our policy of hidden strength 50 years ago. I believed then, as I believe now, that the strong should protect the weak. Korth recognized the name. Kim Woo-jin was one of the founding members of the human space program, one of the architects of human galactic policy. However, Admiral, there is a difference between choosing peace and accepting aggression. There is a difference between being patient and being passive. You have forced us to reveal capabilities we hoped never to use. The human ships began to move again, this time in a pattern that surrounded each Saurian vessel individually. Korth watched as his mighty invasion fleet was isolated and contained with casual ease. President Kim, Korth said carefully, what are your terms? Complete surrender of all Saurian military vessels, immediate withdrawal from human space, full disclosure of all Shadow Alliance activities, reparations for the lives lost in your attacks on our civilians. Korth looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their instruments in disbelief. Saurian technology, considered among the most advanced in the galaxy, looked primitive compared to what the humans were displaying. And if we refuse? Korth asked. There was a long pause. When President Kim spoke again, his voice was sad but determined. Admiral, your species believes that might makes right. You believe that the strong should dominate the weak. You have built your entire civilization around the concept of survival of the fittest. The human ships moved closer, their alien weapons clearly visible. We are going to teach you why humans survived on a death world where everything tried to kill us. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest or the most aggressive. We survived because we learned to work together. We survived because we became smarter than our predators. A new display appeared on Korth's main screen. It showed the Saurian homeworld, with dozens of cloaked human ships in orbit around it. We survived, Admiral, because we learned that 6 months after the surrender at New Sol, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Council had been reformed with new leadership. Several species had issued formal apologies to humanity. The Shadow Alliance had collapsed when their military capabilities were revealed to be far inferior to human technology. But the most surprising change was happening on Saurus Prime, the Saurian homeworld. Engineer Ote Young stood in the ruins of what had been the planet's largest military shipyard. Around him, human construction crews worked alongside Saurian engineers to build something the galaxy had never seen before, a joint research facility dedicated to peaceful technology. The fusion generators should be online by next week, told his Saurian counterpart, Engineer Velnash. Your people will have unlimited clean energy for the first time in centuries. Velnash clicked his claws nervously. Like most Saurians, he was still adjusting to the idea of working with humans as partners, rather than conquerors or subjects. I still don't understand why you're helping us. We attacked your colonies. We killed your people. O paused in his work, looking out at the construction site where former enemies worked side by side. Because destroying you wouldn't bring our people back to life. Building a better future for both our species might prevent more deaths in the future. This conversation was happening all across the galaxy. Human reconstruction teams were working on dozens of worlds that had been part of the Shadow Alliance. Instead of occupation or punishment, humans were providing aid and technology to help former enemies rebuild their civilizations. In the reformed Galactic Council chambers, Elder Park Sun-hee addressed a gathering of representatives from every species in known space. She was old enough to remember humanity's first contact with alien civilizations, and young enough to see the new future being built. The question before us today is not how to prevent war, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. War is easy. Anger is easy. Revenge is easy. The question is how to choose peace when peace is hard. The chamber was packed. Every species wanted to understand how humanity had hidden such advanced technology for 50 years, and why they were now sharing it freely with former enemies. Many of you have asked why we concealed our true capabilities, Elder Park continued. The answer is simple. We were afraid of ourselves. She activated a display showing images from human history. Ancient battles, nuclear explosions, environmental destruction, the near-extinction events that had almost ended human civilization before they reached space. Earth taught us to be warriors. Our gravity, our weather, our predators, our diseases, everything on our world was designed to create the perfect soldiers, but our history taught us that perfect soldiers make imperfect civilizations. The images changed to show human space expansion, the first diplomatic missions, the peacekeeping efforts that had prevented dozens of wars. So we made a choice. We chose to be gardeners instead of conquerors. We chose to build rather than destroy. We chose to hide our swords so we could offer flowers instead. Ambassador Lee Kyung-min, representing the new generation of human diplomats, stepped forward. But we never forgot that sometimes flowers need protection from those who would destroy them. In the audience, Na Hyun-woo sat with his new guardian family. The boy who had addressed the council during humanity's darkest hour was now 13 years old. He had become a symbol of the change happening across the galaxy, proof that even the youngest voices could speak truth to power. The galaxy learned something important in the past 6 months, Ambassador Lee continued. Strength and kindness are not opposites. The strongest species in the galaxy chose to be kind. The most advanced civilization chose to be helpful. The most dangerous warriors chose to be peacemakers. She gestured to the mixed group of human and alien engineers, doctors, and teachers who filled the observer sections of the chamber. But we also learned that kindness has limits. Patience has boundaries. There comes a time when good people must fight to protect other good people from those who choose evil. The vote that day was unanimous. Every species in the galaxy agreed to the new Galactic Charter, which established clear principles. The strong would protect the weak, advanced civilizations would help developing ones, and any species that chose aggression over diplomacy would face the combined response of all peaceful worlds. 1 year later, Captain Hwan Tai-min stood in a classroom on New Seoul, teaching a mixed group of human and alien children about galactic history. The colony world had been completely rebuilt, better than before, with technology that seemed almost magical compared to what had existed a year ago. "Teacher Juan," asked a young Saurian student named Kesitar, "why didn't humans conquer everyone when they revealed their ships?" Juan smiled. It was a question he heard often from the non-human children. Their species' histories were full of conquest and domination. The idea of having superior power and not using it for control was difficult for them to understand. "Because conquest is temporary," Juan explained. "Fear lasts only as long as the weapon pointing at you. But respect, friendship, partnership, those things last forever." A human girl named Chang So-young raised her hand. "But what if someone attacks us again?" "Then we'll defend ourselves," Juan said simply. "The galaxy knows now that humans can fight when we have to, but they also know that we prefer to build rather than break." He activated a classroom display, showing the current state of the galaxy. Green lights marked peaceful trading partnerships. Blue lights showed joint research projects. Yellow lights indicated ongoing diplomatic missions. "Look at all those lights," Juan said. "Everyone represents cooperation instead of conflict, healing instead of harm, building instead of breaking. That's what happens when the strong choose to protect instead of dominate." After class, Juan walked through the corridors of New Seoul's primary school. Human and alien children played together in the hallways. Saurian kids taught human kids how to climb vertical surfaces. Human kids taught alien kids how to play basketball in high gravity. Dr. Lee Sora found him there, watching the children with a smile on her face. She had returned to New Seoul after the reconstruction to establish the galaxy's first interspecies medical college. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. "I was thinking about the legend," Juan replied. Dr. Lee knew what he meant. Across the galaxy, the story was being told and retold. The legend of the day the Deathworlders stopped playing nice. But like all legends, it was being changed in the telling. Some versions focused on the awesome display of human military power. Others emphasized the mercy shown to defeated enemies. A few got the facts completely wrong and turned it into a story about giant space battles and heroic last stands. But the core message remained the same in every version. The strongest people in the galaxy had chosen to be kind. And when their kindness was mistaken for weakness, they had reminded everyone why kindness required strength to maintain. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Dr. Lee asked. "Revealing our true capabilities, I mean." Juan watched a group of children work together to solve a puzzle. Half of them were human, half were from species that had been enemies just a year ago. They didn't see each other as different species. They just saw friends working together. "I think we made the only choice we could live with," he said. "We tried being secretly strong and publicly peaceful. When that didn't work, we had to be openly strong and hopefully still peaceful. And now? Now everyone knows what we're capable of, both the good and the bad. They know we can crack moons with our weapons, but they also know we prefer to use those same resources to build schools and hospitals." Dr. Lee nodded. "The galaxy grew up a little, didn't it? The galaxy learned that the universe is big enough for everyone to succeed. They learned that helping your neighbors makes everyone stronger, including yourself." As they walked toward the school's exit, they passed a memorial wall dedicated to those who had died in the Shadow Alliance attacks. Human names were listed alongside alien names. Doctors and patients who had died together at medical stations, researchers who had been killed while working on peaceful projects, children who had become victims of someone else's war. At the bottom of the memorial, someone had carved a simple message in multiple languages. "They chose to heal. We choose to remember." That evening, Juan stood on his apartment balcony, looking up at the stars. New Seoul's sky was clearer than Earth's, and he could see the lights of orbital stations and passing ships. The galaxy was busier now, with more trade, more cooperation, more species working together on projects that benefited everyone. His communication device chimed with a message from Earth. A new species had been discovered on the far edge of the galaxy. They were primitive, aggressive, and convinced that they were the strongest warriors in the universe. The message was a request for diplomatic assistance. Juan smiled and began composing his reply. Tomorrow he would once again pack his bags and head out into the galaxy to do what humans did best: turn enemies into friends, conflicts into partnerships, and war into peace. But this time, everyone involved would know exactly what would happen. If diplomacy failed, the legend had spread across the stars, and legends had power. The story of the Deathworlders who chose kindness over conquest had become a template for how civilizations should behave. Not because they